Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. It is I, Dalton Burdett. It is great to see you guys again. Today, we're going to be talking about One of Them Days, starring Keke Palmer and SZA. If I pronounce it incorrectly, I apologize. I'm not alone, of course. I'm with the great Nicholas Iricchio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Good, tis I, tis I.
Yes, yes. And before we dive into this review, Nick, do you mind kind of giving the audience a brief synopsis as to what the film is about?
Yeah, sure thing. So, One of Them Days is the directorial debut of Lawrence Lamont, and I believe the writing debut of Syreeta Singleton, at least according to Letterboxd. I don't know if they have filmed anything for television, as it does not cover that. But One of Them Days follows best friends and roommates Drew and Alyssa, who are about to have one of them days. When they discover Alyssa's boyfriend has blown their rent money, the duo finds themselves going to extremes in a comical race against the clock to avoid eviction and keep their friendship intact.
Thank you very much, my friend. That synopsis pretty much clears exactly what the movie is about. Whoever wrote that for the studio deserves a bit of a pay bump, but I'll kind of throw it over to you first
Mhm.
because it's a studio comedy. What's kind of a studio? It's more of an indie-ish studio comedy that was made for a very modest budget of about 14 million in theaters. It's not a kind of movie that we get a whole lot of anymore. What were your general thoughts on the movie?
I mean, I had a good time with it. I don't think it's anything to write home about. I was glad we got to go see it in theaters because I these mid budget, low budget comedies are something I'm excited to see back in theaters. So I do want to go try to support them when I have the opportunity. But overall, I would say it's not nothing to rush to theaters to see. I think that Keke Palmer is an absolute star. She always has been, especially going back to like Nope. She's just oozing charisma through the screen, and you are just naturally drawn to her performance. Her dynamic and her relationship with SZA's character, I thought, was very well done, very well developed. SZA's performance, I think, is lacking compared to Keke Palmer's. I think Keke does a lot of the sort of heavy lifting of it, but it's a very fleshed out world. I thought it's very unique in its voice. It's very a lot of suspension of disbelief that comes with comedy, as it will. But the side characters, to me, I thought were the real standout of the film. I think each and every side character that we sort of are introduced from like the person taking an order at a fast food window to the person who's drawing blood for a donation. I thought that they had some of the best comedic moments of the film to me. It gets a little convoluted, I think, in the third act. It was a lot of storylines coming together, but I mean, overall, it was I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's one of the best comedies I've seen, but I'd say far from the worst.
Yeah, no, you and I are pretty much on the exact same wavelength when it comes to this film. It's practically exactly how I feel. I think the primary thing a comedy needs to do is make you laugh, and this film definitely made me laugh. Um,
Absolutely.
Particularly in the opening scene. The opening scene of the movie is fucking hilarious. And from there, I was like, oh, we're going to get some good laughs in this movie. And we did. And like you pointed out, a lot of the side characters actually get a lot of jokes. And it's not, they're not stealing anything away from the leads and their charisma. It's just adding to the movie. And it felt like
Mhm.
very welcome additions. Also, like you said, there are a couple story issues. And, depending on how much you bring to it, it's going to bother you one way or another. The story does kind of get a bit out there, especially when the movie does such a good job convincing you that this could be a day that happens to somebody, and then it slowly just kind of goes into this array of a new suspension of disbelief area
Mhm.
where it's not quite connecting with you and you're like, oh, you're about to lose me, and then it would kind of reel itself back in. Pacing wise, I thought the second act of the movie was paced beautifully, and that's the most important part of the movie. It's the chunk in the middle. But I do think that the first and third acts do suffer from very odd pacing, and the storylines that do come together, while plot wise it makes sense, the way in which they come together through the script and through the editing just felt very convenient and matter of fact. And I can kind of deal with that. That's one thing. But something that I didn't really appreciate convenience wise were the roadblocks that the Keke Palmer lead character has to go through. And you kind of feel the stakes of what's at risk for her life and I don't want to give anything away, but there's a very important thing that she's looking forward to during the day, and she gets to do that thing, and when that thing is ruined, how that part of the film is resolved was extremely just like, oh, we want to make sure that everyone gets a happy ending, and it didn't feel kind of like earned back. While the character did physical actions, it wasn't for the goal of earning it back, which is part of the point of what they were doing. It was to help the community. But I feel like if you're going to go in that direction, then show that what she was trying to get wasn't all that important in the first place. It was kind of a situation of, the character got to have her cake and eat it too when it came to what she needed and what she wanted. And usually what creates interesting story conflict is that battle between what a character wants and what they need and what they end up getting. So I went very deep on the character journey on one of them days, but listen,
it's a character-driven story. It's a character-driven story,
yes,
so
yes.
You need that story element and that humanity. I kind of what you were talking about with that tonal balance of, this seems realistic versus this seems implausible. I kind of wish the whole movie sort of had this over absurdist feel to it, where you kind of don't get that release of like, oh yeah, I could see this happening. And they're kind of playing into that, it's sort of this over exemplification of, everyone's had one of them days, but you're seeing it at such an extreme, ridiculous level. And as she's like, let's say she catches on fire, right? And her hair still has a little flame in it. It's like, yep, I've had one of them days too, and that's just sort of this recurring beat. But instead it kind of teaches the line of, I want to be emotionally invested in this character, but the situations they're in are just improbable.
Yeah, and it's not even the improbable situations. I think it was just the way that the movie would kind of play hopscotch with how over the top is it going to go. And like you said, I think had it done a better job of firmly establishing throughout the entire first act that it was going to be a bit of an over-the-top scenario, that I would have bought those situations a lot more. Where in this particular case, it would have great grounded moments, it would have great over-the-top moments, but the meshing of them felt off.
Because the whole community that was built sort of in their apartment complex, I thought was really well done. Like, I felt invested in that unit as a family. I thought was honestly the strongest element of the film.
No, I agree. And the other really strong thing of the film for me personally was Katt Williams, who plays a small role in this, anyone who knows Katt Williams, he's hilarious. And him in the movie, every time his character popped up, you're laughing. You're like, oh my God, yes. Like every time he'd pop up, I'd be like, yes, more of this guy, more of this character. And there's a line that he says when they're trying to get a pair of very expensive shoes off of a phone line. And I won't spoil the line for anyone, but we saw the film together, and it made both of us die laughing.
Probably the funniest part of the movie to me was Katt Williams' character. The drive-through guy was pretty funny, though. There's a character in a drive-through.
Oh my God.
I thought his comedic moments were very good.
Yeah, yeah. And, this is going to be one of those movies where, and what I really like about the movie is that it does have a charm to it. And while I have story issues, I have pacing issues, I have some tonal clashing issues, I feel like if you watch this movie at the right age, this movie could mean a lot to you. And I feel like there's like an 11 or 12-year-old who's watching this movie a little bit too young, who is going to latch onto it and be like, this movie is my personality. Like, I love this movie. And I hope that happens because, it's for all the right reasons for a movie that ultimately is just a really fun time. And for a directorial debut, you mentioning that, it does kind of feel that way when you watch the movie, but not always in a bad way. There's something also fresh and fun about someone's first film that you're watching, and you feel that as well.
Like the voice, even from the writing perspective, I thought was very unique. So it's always great to see that sort of fresh talent coming into it, and it's doing pretty. I think it was about just at its production budget last we checked on the box office. Yeah.
Whenever we did our box office report on the last episode of the podcast we do, with shameless plug, the Movie Nights Roundtable, you should click and watch it. It was the holiday, so the final numbers were actually not reported. They came in today, and it actually opened number 1 to a little bit over 11 million. Yes, I know. So so exciting for them, and hopefully it can maintain in the box office through good word of mouth. But
I think
yeah,
it'll too because it seemed to be getting some pretty positive reviews on it. I think we're sort of on the middle ground on it, but from what I've seen, it's been a lot more trending upwards. So I could see it having a good legs on that, and maybe even a great sort of second life when it hits a streaming platform.
yeah, yeah, and you love to see that. You really love to see movies, especially for a first-time filmmaker, succeed, and I hope it
Mhm.
does. I hope it does. But those are our thoughts, guys. What did you think of One of Them Days? We'd love to see your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.